We're talking Ball State, Don Shondell and Ray McCallum talking Ball State, Nate Davis and Bonzi Wells, Schumann, Bell Tower and Worthen, fans all over from Muncie to Berlin, getting Cannons, Carters and Greeks.
All right. Hello, everyone out there in Cardinal land. Welcome to the newest edition of Ball State of the Union, your number one Ball State football podcast. By the fans, for the fans. We're talking current headlines, exclusive interviews with Cardinals, athletes, and coaches, and fun off-the-wall debates that you won't hear anywhere else. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. And as always, remember, we're talking Ball State. Hey, it's John here. I am on location out here in Las Vegas, Nevada right now. Colin and I recorded our interview with Mick Tidrow yesterday, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But there was a few things I wanted to run through first. Before we get to that, a couple news and notes of things, not only with Ball State football, but with some other Ball State athletics things that are going on that I found pretty interesting. So we'll start first here with, let me share this screen here. As you might have seen out there already, we have a pretty extensive docu-series coming from Ball State Sports Link. It's called Together, and it's a 12-week, weekly episodic show about Ball State football for the 2025 season. So it's basically like an in-season type of Hard Knocks. And so this is some content out there that people I know are always asking for and wanting to kind of see more behind-the-scenes stuff, because Sports Link is such an incredible program and something that Ball State sports can really take advantage of and does, and this is one of those cutting edge things that they're going to be doing. So I encourage everyone to get out there and watch when it does come out. When does it come out here? It looks like they just started production back a couple weeks ago and premieres August 28th. So a couple days before that Purdue game, we're going to get that first episode of Ball State Together. And I'm sure if you follow SportsLink or just any Ball State accounts in general, you'll be able to find the links and where to watch it. But exciting thing coming up. I know not a lot of schools are going to have something like this, and it's pretty cool. So I am excited to check that out when it does come out. And speaking of some things that have come out in the news recently, we're going to take a little bit of a detour here from Ball State football, which is obviously the main thing we talk about here. But I'm also a big fan of Ball State men's basketball. And here in the last couple of days, we also got the non-conference slate for the men's basketball schedule for this upcoming 2025-2026 season. And so obviously, if you're looking at it here, we don't have obviously the times for the games, or we don't have the MAC schedule yet. That's coming later. But a few things that stick out to me. One, we have those in-state games that we always want to have against Indiana State and Evansville. Unfortunately, both of them are on the road, so that is kind of a little bit of a bummer. But we do have those games. Those are the teams that you want to see on the schedule every year for Ball State men's basketball, that is. I thought the playing Fort Wayne in an exhibition role is a little interesting. That seems like that would usually be a regular season type game. So that is an interesting development there, not playing them in an actual game that counts. And then obviously the big non-conference game is going to be at Wisconsin. Obviously, usually historically a pretty good program. So it's a lot more winnable looking schedule on paper than maybe some years in the past. And it's a lot more condensed for the most part. I remember a couple years back, and I referenced this in the interview with Mick Tidrow. You'll hear here in just a few minutes. But when Michael Lewis first took over, maybe his first or second year, we had a game at Omaha. And I remember either before or after the game, he was basically like, well, this is the schedule that I kind of inherited when I became the coach. But I don't understand why we're getting on a plane to come play at Omaha. It's not a rivalry game. It's not like a big time opponent. He's like, I didn't really understand why I do that. When I'm in control of the schedule, we're going to really condense this down. So you can kind of see that here. A lot of these road games, let's see, road game at Fort Wayne, in-state, at Wisconsin, not super far, Indiana State, in-state, at Lafayette. Okay, that's out more in Pennsylvania in that little tournament that they're playing in. So, and then Evansville. So what is the furthest game they play non-conference on the road? In Campbell in North Carolina. So they really kind of shrunk this down geographically, and that's something he said he was planning on doing. So we will get to see more of that schedule play out with terms of the times and the MAC schedule coming up here before too long, but thought it was interesting to kind of check that out. So that is all I have, is kind of like my little preamble here before we jump into the interview. We talked with Mick about kind of his journey, how he got into broadcasting, how he got the job at Ball State, and then some of maybe kind of his favorite memories from his job so far here the last few years. So let's check out and jump into the interview that Colin and myself did with Mick Tidrow. All right, everybody out there in Cardinal land, joining us today is a familiar voice and face, the voice of the Ball State Cardinals, Mick Tidrow. He is the man behind the mic for football, men's basketball, bringing fans the big moments on all of the biggest calls for Cardinal athletics. He's going to talk about his journey throughout the years with the team, some stories behind the life of the voice of the Cardinals. Mick, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we jump into everything, your career path, your background, we need one good Chris Radican story right off the jump.
Oh, my gosh. First and foremost, I appreciate you guys having me on. And following up Chris is always a tough task. The best Chris Radican story. Ooh, man, you guys put me on the spot. Got a good list of them, but I think the first time he walked into the booth, I think is a really good one, because he is such a confident person, and you guys know this because you've been able to interact with him a couple of times and see how he is. But he's such a confident person, and walked in the booth the first time, he's like, dude, I'm sweating a little bit. he's like, I'm a little nervous, and I'm like, dude, you're such a natural at talking and engaging with everybody. So I think that's one of my favorite stories. I also just think all the road trips, like he's such a funny guy to be around. And so whenever we're in the car with him, he's just got story after story, joke after joke. So I think it's just all the little moments that kind of build up. But that first time he walked into the booth, we got to Schumann Stadium way early. And I'm talking like 4 or 5 hours before kickoff. And he's sitting there stewing, pacing around, and just getting ready for the game. So that's a memory that always stick out to me about Chris.
Yeah, I remember the first time we talked with him. My favorite story he gave us right off the bat was the game against Miami last year, and you had to walk him through, that was his first road game, of where to go to the bathroom and when you can go to the bathroom during these broadcasts.
And what a game that was, guys, because that was the game of all the delays. And
yep,
so Chris is like, what do we do during these delays? I'm like, man, we're just going to get President Mearns, we'll get Jeff Mitchell, we'll get all your friends on, anybody who's in Miami, let's bring them in and have some fun. But yeah, I was like, make sure you know where the restrooms are at, make sure you know where your cell phone's at, and in any case. So we're in good shape there, but that's always a good story too.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, enough about Chris. We give Chris all the time in the world. Let's talk about you a little bit here. So how exactly did you get into broadcasting? Like, was this something you wanted to do your whole life? Is it something, once you got into college, you kind of grew to? How did this kind of become your profession?
Yeah, that's a good question, John. So I had no real idea what I wanted to do with my life going into my senior year of high school. I thought I was going to be the next Yankees, the next shortstop of the New York Yankees.
Oh, me
and
too.
Clearly that wasn't in the playing field. So we were out on a trip in Yellowstone with my family because I'm from Utah. So we took a trip to Yellowstone, which we had done probably 3 or 4 times prior to that. And my brother, who lives in Indiana, which is where my dad's from, this is getting to be a long story already. But we had some family that lived in Indiana. They flew out, came to Yellowstone with us, and he kind of asked me what I wanted to do, and I told him that, and I thought baseball was the next step for me. And he's like, well, have you thought about broadcasting? And I said, I didn't really know you could do that for a career and actually get paid to do that long term. So he said, well, I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody at Ball State, and I think you'd love the program, even though you don't know what the world's like. So I said, sure, and decided to go on a visit to Ball State. And Chris Taylor, the director of the sports center program, just took me on a tour. I remember going with the chair of the department, Tim Pollard. I was terrified. I don't think I've ever told Tim this, but I was terrified because you had Tim Pollard, who made all the decisions as the department chair, and then Chris Taylor, who was trying to continue to build the sports center program to what it is today. And I had no experience. So I was going into this with, hey, I'm somebody from Utah that's going to try their hardest and just give you everything I've got because I have no experience. And they said, okay, sounds good. We're starting up this Champions program, which would be a 4-year track within digital sports production. And so I thought, okay, I'll apply. Let's see what happens. And go from there. And I walked around campus, saw the major green screens and all the different resources they had on campus. And I said, I don't know this world. I don't know how any of this works, but I'm in. I'm so all in on this opportunity if I get accepted. And a couple months later, I got accepted to Ball State, got accepted to SportsLink, and everything took off from there because of Chris and Tim just saying, yeah, we'll give you an opportunity, just prove every day. And I took that to heart just because I knew that there were people to my left and to my right that were doing this, that had all the experience in the world, that dove into this since they were very, very young in high school. And I knew I had a lot of catching up to do. So I just became a sponge and tried to learn everything I could as much as possible. So my journey in broadcasting was a little bit different. I didn't start really until freshman year of college with any idea that this was something I wanted to do.
Yeah, I have a kind of a similar story. I worked in the athletic equipment field for a while, ended up in the NFL for a few years doing various things. And it didn't happen until even my senior year of college at Ball State, when I was trying to apply for internships and people were like, you can do this full time. And I was like, you really can? People get paid to do this as a career? And they're like, yeah, you certainly can. So very similar story to you on kind of how you get started in something like that. It can be just as simple as that. So you get to Muncie, you're in the SportsLink program. How do you become the voice of the Cardinals? How did that happen?
Oh, that's another long story. So I graduated with my bachelor's in 2018 and my master's in 2020 from Ball State. And my wife and I moved to North Dakota right as COVID had started to hit. And that was just a wild time because she graduated in December of 2020. And then you start hearing in January, February of a possible virus going around, and you're sitting here thinking, well, she just graduated, I'm about to graduate. How does this all look? And the company that I got a job offer for in North Dakota in February 2020, they kept their word. They decided to bring me on right as the pandemic had started. So I can't thank them enough for doing that. Beck Sports Network out there in North Dakota. And we were out there for 2.5 years. It was 2.5 years of just constantly calling games. It was probably 300 events I broadcast in less than 2 years. When it was all said and done, it was just constant couple games a week, and just high school, college, semi-professional, the indoor football league. Got to call some Nate Davis action out there as well. So that was so much fun. And that prepared me for when Joel Gaudette decided to leave Ball State. I'd seen his post on social media. It was March 10th of 2022. I'll never forget the date when I saw that post, because I was driving back from Jamestown, North Dakota, and we had a region tournament, I believe, for high school. And I saw the tweet, and I just thought, I've got to send some texts and make some phone calls next week. I don't want to, be the person who sends something right after an announcement. But I had made a bunch of friends and relationships throughout my 6 years as a student, and I just thought to reach out to a few folks in the athletic department and say, hey, I know this is still fresh. I know he just announced he's leaving, but I would love to have conversations whenever the time is right and whenever you're ready to have the conversation. So waited a couple weeks, heard back from Sean Sullivan, who is now at the Horizon League. He spent quite a while at Ball State as a deputy athletics director, and Sean kind of spearheaded the conversation for the job. And so Sean and I had dialogue throughout the summer. He said, we're going to try and do this with the position, and then ultimately post the position later in the summer. So got the job offer in July of 22 and moved back here in August of 22. So it was a crazy 2.5 years in North Dakota. Learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about broadcasting, but also just how much that I love this job. And that phone call I'll never forget, from Sean. He called me as I was pulling into the parking lot at my job in North Dakota. And I was about to run graphics for a game, because sometimes we did some production work as on-air talent as well. We'd pick up some graphic shifts, camera work. And that game, I just decided I was on graphics. So I pull in, and right as I'm about to open the door, Sean's number pops up on my phone. And I thought, oh boy, okay, this is either a really good call or sorry, we're going a different direction call, because we kind of set a few conversations up and felt like this was the phone call that was a yes or no. And he said, hey, Mick, how are you? I said, I'm doing well, Sean. I'm a little nervous. How are you? And he was like, I'm great. Let me put you on hold and dial in a few more people. And at that point I had, my heart falls and I just think, okay, this feels good. And then he comes back on and says, hey, Mick, we got a few other people on. Can you hear us? I say, yeah, absolutely. And he said, how would you like to be the next voice of the Cardinals? And I just started to shake. It's like, man, this is 26 years old, and I just got offered to be the voice of an FBS team, and it's my alma mater. Like that was just everything in that moment. It felt surreal, and the phone call was only like 3 or 4 minutes long. I immediately hung up, called my wife, and say, hey, I just got the job offer. She's like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Because she's from South Bend area, and so she was excited to be able to come back to her home state and be closer to her parents and her family. So it was that moment that we had worked really hard for and had just stayed the course, as cliche as that is, but a lot of really good people, guys, that helped along the way. Like it's a journey of friendships made in North Dakota, at Ball State, across the board. My brother Luke introducing me to people that were able to take a chance on me and say yes at Ball State as a student. So that's the journey that it's been so far. It's been nothing but a blessing.
Yeah, so it's been awesome to have you. It's been great listening to you the last couple of years. And actually,
that,
Colin is actually a South Bend guy, just like your wife.
All right, we love it.
So we got a little South Bend action up here. But all right, so you said August. You get the job in August. Well, we all know what August means. That means football season's right around the corner. So hey, let's walk through a little scenario here. It's game day. You got Radican in your ear. You're driving in the car. What does a typical game day look like from you? From maybe like the prep leading up to it until when you finally sign off after the game is over?
Yeah, so for my very first game, you mentioned August of 22. My first event that I was around was Fan Jam in August, and that was a little bit like I think later in August that year. And so we did that, and then a couple weeks later, it's kickoff. And my first game, I'm walking into Rocky Top, guys. I'm just like, what is this? I walk into that booth, and you just see the view, and as a night game and the lights and the atmosphere, I was shaking, and I thought I need to just walk around a little bit and sit down. But in terms of a normal game, it's a week-long process for every game for me. And leading up to the season, it's quite a bit because in our case, we have 54 new guys, 54 returners, so roster split 50-50, and training camp is huge for us. And this training camp has been great with the new staff, with Coach U and the entire squad, to where I've just been able to get to know people organically. And that's what I've been able to do really the last 4 years. But training camp is such a foundational piece to learn who players are, names, numbers right off the bat. I probably have 80 to 90% of the guys memorize names and numbers before I even start my charts for Ball State. So I started that this week, intentionally waited a while because I wanted everything to be like second nature before I got to writing things down and looking at those notes. So got a lot of the bulk of the work done the last couple of days on those charts, but it's really, if I'm looking at a typical week, I'm starting on Sunday morning after a Saturday game. Sunday morning, wake up, and that's immediate. Start watching tape of the team we're about to play, how they operate, what their guys look like when they're playing. Because for me, that's the easiest way to remember names and numbers, is just to watch them play on tape. And that's the first thing I try and do every Sunday morning, is just make sure that I'm watching those opponents on tape. And the next thing I do is I quickly just update all of Ball State stats, because to me, it's second nature at this point. I just want to make sure I've got all the names or all the numbers updated. But yeah, Monday then begins building out the bare bones of the charts. And this year I'm doing something a little bit different. Instead of going on defense by position group, I'm just doing numerically, top to bottom, and have 4 columns, so that I can quickly identify everything a little bit faster this year than in past years, I feel like. And for me, it's laying out the names and numbers of all of the opponents on that Monday of that game week. So that helps just get the names and numbers down. And then after that, I start building in the stats, and then storylines are third on radio for me, just because I want to make sure I have at least one big stat or storyline for probably each of the position players that'll see action. So on a typical game, I'm trying to memorize probably at least 80 names and numbers, and then at least one fact about each one of them. That's at least.
That's crazy.
And that for me has been something that I've learned what works best and what to stay away from in terms of that preparation process. But at least 80, and if I'm feeling really good, I've got 90 memorized. But that's usually opening week. I feel good about that 90 number just because I've got a lot more time to get ready. But that preparation progress throughout the week, after I get all of that written down in my notes, and I start diving into radio shows from opposing teams, who coaches are talking about, student athlete interviews with other programs to make sure that I'm not missing a story or a fact or a historical note on somebody. And then by the time we get to Thursday, Friday, having our final preparation conversations with Coach U and the staff just to see what their thoughts are on the opponent as they've been able to watch film throughout the week and make sure we're not missing anything from that standpoint. So early on in the week, it's tape and bare bones, building things out. Later in the week, it's starting to dive into those stories and that heavier information.
Yeah, in the transfer portal era now, I never thought about the broadcasters being one of the really hurt people by the transfer portal. This roster turnover is crazy, and yeah, you guys have to just kind of start from scratch, especially at a Ball State where these rosters are really getting picked apart. I feel for you on that.
It's crazy. Purdue's got 80 plus new players this year. Yeah. And so I'm sitting here looking at these rosters and I'm like, this is different. Little basketball is a lot easier. You get 14, 15 players on a roster, but with football, with so much movement, it has become such a focus in training camp, going back to that for our team. Because if I've got our team down like the back of my hand, that makes my prep for an opposing team a little bit easier with all of those names and numbers. Because for us, getting into MAC play, at least, there's some familiarity with the players and the coaches with some teams. But guys, this year, 6 new head coaches in the league, all these new rosters, a little bit different.
Oh yeah. So besides calling games, for football, men's basketball, what are some other duties associated with your job? Like, as we see, doing stuff, you're promoting some of the stuff like with the EA college football tournament coming up, with the watch party we see. So do you have something to do with planning those events, or are you just tasked to be like, hey, we need you to announce this for us?
For sure. That's a great question. So I'll start with, I do a lot of the TV games as well for the department. So when it's not football, men's basketball, I'll work on our ESPN Plus package, soccer, women's basketball, softball, baseball, and broadcast those sports as well, which for me is a treat because I love being able to dabble in radio and TV and be on both sides. But from my other duties within the department, and it's kind of changed a little bit the last few weeks, I've been able to help dive more into like what you guys were talking about, the community engagement side, and trying to help build the Cardinal community a little bit. So been able to help be in those conversations with the EA and the watch party situations. The EA Sports was a conversation that had a lot of different partners on campus involved, and have to give a big shout out to the university marketing and the esports department as well for putting a lot of groundwork into this, and then asking the athletic department, hey, what can you guys do to help promote this and try to bring the Cardinal fans together. So yeah, there's a piece of my job now that's helping out with the content side of things, but then also just the community relations and trying to build Cardinal fans from Muncie to South Bend, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, anywhere that we can have more engagement and try to bring people together.
Yeah, Colin is pretty convinced he's going to win that tournament, by the way. Just so you might be seeing him in the future. But I plan whoever wins this. So even if it's not Colin, I'm putting it out there right now. Who can come on? We're going to have them on Ball State of the Union. It's going to be like their press conference after the game is over.
It should be a press conference. That's a great idea. Yeah. I love it. And Colin, have you been practicing? I thought I saw a tweet saying you were out there practicing.
Definitely, Mick. Definitely. Do you play at all?
I will be the first to admit that I love to play.
Okay, and did you enter the tournament?
I haven't entered yet. I might be a late entry or a no entry. I want to monitor the situation and see how everything unfolds from a bird's eye view. So I think I'm going to sit this one out. But then in future years, once we've got this worked out, I think maybe that's in the future.
Okay, so it might be like an annual sort of deal, huh?
We're hoping that everything from this foundational year can help launch us into bigger and bigger projects within this. Yes.
Okay. That's breaking news. It's breaking news. All right, so let's talk a little football, Mick. Maybe just at first, you've had a chance to be around Coach U for some time now. What are just some general impressions?
Man, I think the world of Coach U already. The story behind how he became the Ball State coach and just how it's all come together has been awesome. And the first time I met him was at his house right after he signed his contract. We were able to do a photo shoot at his place, and he just welcomed us in with open arms. And from that moment forward, it was, this guy rocks. This guy gets it. And Ball State's in such good hands with him at the helm. He's never going to talk about this, but at events, he's one of the last people there picking up trash. He's one of the last people there making sure all the staff has been thanked and appreciated. He is somebody that, without hesitation, is taking care of the people that help take care of him, because through all the levels that he's coached at, he's had to do those small things. He's had to help with the marketing team, the event staff, the promotions team, communications. Like he's understood so many people's roles that he embraces all of it. So for us just to have that welcoming atmosphere from Coach U with everybody's jobs, I think has just been outstanding. And so my first impression of him couldn't be any better. And I think he's done a really good job of embracing Ball State's community, and him having a background with the state of Indiana and the MAC, the dreaded NIU abbreviation. But him having the familiarity, I think, is big because he knows what it takes to be big in this community.
Nice. So, Mick, you kind of talked about being involved in the community, or not in the community, I'm sorry, but in the like social media presence that Ball State has and the videos we put out. How have you seen that progress? Because when John will talk about this a little bit too, but when I first started the Twitter account, it was because I couldn't really find information about Ball State football, honestly. And I feel like we've seen an increase as of lately, especially with this off season and ramping up here lately with content that they're putting out. How have you seen the program evolve, not just athletically or like football wise, but how have you seen it evolve in terms of our social media branding and presence as well?
For sure. That's a good question, Colin. I think it's been a really good group effort from the football content team. They've been able to hire several folks into this year that have done just a really good job. And I've been able to help a little bit within that of helping manage things and make sure that the support's there from an athletic staff situation. And I think the coaching staff has also just been really open to new ideas and things like that as well. So I think just the combination of having the people that they've been able to bring in from a graphics and a photo and a video standpoint, that team has done a fantastic job. And the creativity that they're coming up with has been great because it matches the identity of what the coaching staff wants to. So I think those two things paired together have made a really good match. And those folks have done a really good job. I think every day since the start of camp and report day, there's been at least one piece of content that's come out, mostly multiple pieces of content every day since camp started. So kudos to all those content folks that have done a really good job.
Definitely. I agree on that. Mick, while you're here, we've got to ask you, what are your expectations for this upcoming season? I'm feeling pretty good about Purdue. Should I be feeling good about Purdue? And what are your expectations in general for this upcoming year?
Yeah, I think you should feel good about Purdue. I think the way that this team practices, the way they get after it every day. Coach U's opening press conference was pretty telling to me. I listened to, I was there and then I watched it back a few times, but I watched this same segment a couple times where he said, we're going to practice to win in the fourth quarter. We're going to practice to win in the fourth quarter. That has stood out to me. And you can see that the guys they're practicing that type of situational stuff. They're doing all of those things in practices to make sure that when you get to the fourth quarter, they're in good shape. So I really like the direction where this team's going, guys, because Coach Hughes had such a good outlook on how to coach this group. And I think the Purdue game is going to be fun. Bring all your friends. Everybody get up there because this is one that a lot of good energy behind. So I feel really good about it. Expectations for the year. I'm never I can never give like wins and losses. I just have never been that kind of person. I think for me, it's more of what we see from the jump. How do we see everybody embrace what Coach U and the staff are doing? And from what I've been able to see just from practices, I think it's been fantastic. And I was telling a few people, and I was talking to Darren Conley about this. And I just asked Darren, I said, how have you seen the team just like embrace all of the new coaching staff and everything that's different? He said, we've just been so focused. And I saw that from the very first practice. They were out there, and when they were practicing on that first day, there was just like this locked inness, and they didn't have to, they had energy, they had all of that, but there was more than that. It was like they knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing already. And I think that speaks volumes for a program, no matter what, if it's a 10-year head coach, a first-year head coach. If you have that, I feel like you're in good shape. So expectation, I'm excited. I think this is a very engaging group. They've all been able to take to what the staff's been saying, and I'm very excited.
Mick, who are some standout players that we should keep our eye out for?
I mean, Darren Conley for sure has been jumping off the page, and I know that's kind of an easy answer, but the way that he's been able to work and put so much time into making sure that he takes that jump this season has been great to watch. And I think there's a reason that he was selected to go to Detroit for the MAC Media Days. I think it's a very great choice. Not, you trust the coaches to pick the right players to go to Media Day, but then you see the work that they're putting in during training camp, and you're like, okay, it makes sense. And so I love the way that he's been building off last year's successes for him, and I think he's primed for a really good season. I think Kyle Kelly too. I think that there's something about the way that he's just been able to bring things to the table, and I think everybody was really excited in 2023 when he had those games under his belt, and 3-3 as a starter looked really good. And I'm excited to see what he brings this season. I think those are two that you look at, and again, easy answer because they were both picked to represent the team in Detroit, but you're seeing why. You're absolutely seeing why.
Now, Mick, I love Ball State football. Everyone, that's why I started Ball State of the Union. Everyone be out there listening, be sure to subscribe. But my first love was actually Ball State men's basketball. My brother played on the team. He was a walk-on back in like the 2007, 2008 range.
Okay, no kidding. What was his name? What's his name?
Joey Clausen. Look up the stats.
Clausen,
two games played, 2 minutes played, nothing else. That's what he's got under his
2
belt
games,
here.
2 minutes. Look, that's more than me. So
that's right.
It's more than most of us.
So, and I was a walk-on on the men's volleyball team, but I have a couple stats, so I got him on that.
You tweeted recently about your numbers. What are they again? Remind me.
Oh man, Mick. Let's see here. NCAA all-time leader in serving percentage. That's not an official stat, but I was like,
it is here.
I was like 5 for 5. So if you look that up, I'm at the top of the leaderboard. Let's see. I got 1 career ace. I got a couple kills. I got maybe 2 blocks. So I got stats. My brother only has 2 games played. But anyways, I love men's basketball. So let's talk a little men's basketball here. Michael Lewis, a couple years in now. What do you think about the direction of the basketball program that Michael Lewis has running right now? It's been tough sledding in terms of keeping some of these good players that we get, which that just kind of seems like it's a problem across all college sports right now. But what are your kind of thoughts on Coach Lewis and the men's basketball team right now?
Yeah, I really like the team that they put together, guys. Here going into his 4th season, you're seeing there's a lot of athleticism and quickness to this team, and that's exciting from a lot of different areas. And not to say that everybody has to build a team like Akron has built a team, because Akron's been the standard, but I think when you look at the athleticism and the abilities that Akron has shown in the past, like with how many guards and those types of players Ball State brought in to the roster this season, it's all about the athleticism. And I'm excited to see how it all comes together, because the team has brought in players who have a like-minded attitude. And we were able to talk to a lot of them on our podcast series, and just the way that they all said, I want to be coached honestly. I want to be coached with somebody who's going to be transparent with me and what my role is and how I fit into a team. And all of them said that was clear from the jump. And you have somebody like Elmore James, who played at Ohio against Ball State frequently in the MAC, and immediately hit the portal and came to Ball State. He's like, I didn't really have anywhere else on my radar. I hit the portal, and I knew, I was like, I want to be coached by Coach Lewis in this team. So I think there are players that are all in on what this staff wants to do. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to the assistants, because what Coach Clancy, Coach Carruthers, Coach Combs, and Coach Brown have done to help recruit all of these athletes too, I think speaks to the connectedness of these players. So I'm really excited. It's a lot of new faces, like we're talking about in football. A lot of new faces, but I think one thing that's going to help with that, guys, is there's a ton of experience with this group as well. And that's experience from the JUCO ranks, the Division I ranks, all across the board that can bring that to here. So I think you're going to see a very fun, entertaining, and engaging team this year. And I'm excited to see like the next steps for the players like Zane Dowdy, see what he's got as well. He's been working really hard to make sure he takes that year 3 jump. So a lot of exciting things, and just listening to the players all kind of speak on that same wavelength I think speaks volumes too.
Yeah, and speaking of men's basketball, we had the non-conference schedule get released earlier today. And I remember a couple years back, I don't know if it was Coach Lewis's first year or when it was, but we had a game at Omaha. And I remember he was being asked afterwards, and he was like, I don't understand why we're playing Omaha. I don't know why we're traveling this far. And it seems like that schedule has been condensed down for those non-conference games. But the highlights I saw today, obviously the big game at Wisconsin. And then we have Evansville and Indiana State both on the road. What are kind of your thoughts? I'm sure you've probably seen this schedule for a while now, but what are your thoughts on kind of this non-conference schedule we have for this year? And did Coach Lewis have that impact to kind of tighten everything up a little bit?
Yeah, I think the playing in-state schools is always important to Coach Lewis, and being somebody who's in the Indiana spheres, of course. So getting Indiana State and Evansville, whenever you have those teams on the schedule, I think is big. But Wisconsin game is definitely one to highlight. Really excited when we saw that, and that'll be a fun trip, guys. I think I'm going to have a scheduling conflict for football and basketball for that Pennsylvania trip, because we have football against Miami, and then there's Pennsylvania trip for basketball those 3 days as well. So I might have to try and find a way to clone myself, or we'll figure out what that looks like. But that should be a fun trip for the guys as well. But I definitely like the trips to places like North Carolina, play Campbell, the Wisconsin trip, and the Indiana schools. So yeah, I think it's a good schedule of having different types of opponents, and that's one thing that teams are always looking for. How can we bring in opponents that are different play styles than us, opponents that will give us different challenges, while also still prioritizing playing in-state schools as well.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited for basketball season. It'll be here before you know. I know we got football right around the corner, but it's peaking right behind us too. It's going to be, what did they say, 77 days or something like that to the first game. But
yeah, 77. That's crazy.
Yeah, it'll be here soon. But we'll get back to basketball later. All right, let's talk a little bit more about your broadcasting career here. You know, any particular moments that stand out to you in your few years you've been the voice of the Cardinals so far?
Oh, guys. Oh, that's a tough question. First off, sorry if it's getting dark. I decided to sit outside on the porch. It's too nice of a night not to.
That's right.
So I have my wife flicked on the light for me. Moments that stand out. The first game that I ever did at Rocky Top was, shaking in my boots there. That always sticks out. The first game at Schumann Stadium is one that always resonates, because I'd been the sideline reporter when I was a GA. And so I had been down on the field on the radio network, and had always thought, oh, that's so cool to look up and see, like, that's the booth. That's what they're doing. And so the first home game at Schumann Stadium always is one that sticks out. I'll go back to my senior year of college. I was on the student radio team when Taylor Persons hit the game winner at Notre Dame.
Oh, very nice.
That's one that, to me, always sticks out as well. And that's a fun group. That was such a fun team, fun season, a lot of good players there. That one sticks out. But the Fat Hill dunk game this past year was pretty electric. That one was a moment that I felt like it was an out-of-body experience. I don't remember what I said in the moment, and I had to go back and watch and listen, and okay, glad I didn't butcher it, just because it's one of those, like, you just don't remember what's happening in the moment because you're so in tune with it. But I would say those ones, the Jackson Corville many kicks that always stand out is a big one against NIU and the Bronze Stalk. So those moments of triumph stand out, and get to make a couple more trips to the Cal, guys. Get to make a couple more trips to Cal.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one for football.
Yeah, one more. We always ask, when we have players on, we'll ask them, what was your welcome to the league moment type thing? Did you have a welcome to the league type, like, broadcasting moment?
Yeah, Tennessee. The very first play I think was a lot to try and make sure I was processing it the right way, because the game is so different when you're up there. Because our press box was way up about the 30-yard line on the right side of the field, so that vantage point for me, I had to use my binoculars a little bit more than I had anticipated in my first game. So I was fully prepared, ready to go. But when that first snap happens and it's a different pace, that was kind of a jolt on, okay, you really have to be on top of this. Not that you wouldn't be anyway, but just knowing that the pace is a little different. But that was a lot of fun because it was my first broadcast, but it was also Haven Fields, who at the time was the deputy AD for Ball State. He'd played at Auburn and been in the SEC. So he knew the life, but he was also new to the broadcasting sphere too. So he and I got to work together and figure out our first broadcast together on Ball State's radio network. So that was a welcome to the league moment for sure.
So yeah, I haven't told you this yet, but I was actually at that game as well. And my night ended in like a hour and a half long line at the McDonald's in downtown Knoxville. So
hour and a half?
It took forever. There was nowhere else to go. Everything
man.
else was packed. They wouldn't even let you in other places. So I might have had a libation or two, but that's for a different day, I guess. So Colin, I know Colin had a couple other questions he wanted to ask you here. We appreciate your time so far.
Yeah, of course.
But, Colin, kind of go ahead, and he had a couple kind of reflecting type questions for you.
Yeah, Mick, what would you say is the best part about representing Ball State as its broadcasting voice?
I think to tell the stories of the athletes and the coaches and the university as a whole, because at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller at heart, and that's what I went to school for. So finding a way to tell a story that's engaging, entertaining, and uplifting to me is always something that resonates. And I love Stuart Scott so much. And when he passed away, it was devastating for so many people. But the way that he told stories and the way that he did it genuinely and made sure he was talking facts, talking about the athletes and the coaches and personnel in a positive light, and making sure that the story was told correctly, always resonated. So for me, as I reflect, it's how do I tell the stories best of the athletes on campus while making sure we're putting them in a positive but also engaging light, to where it's not just regurgitating information, but in our case on the air, it's what's maybe something somebody didn't know. Like Jalen Alexander, running back for Ball State, he's a cousin of Odell Beckham Jr. What's a story that he could tell you about Odell? That's something that for me would help take that storytelling to another level, because we can see it on his bio on the website. But now that we're talking about this, I'm going to go ask him and see, hey, what's the story that you know, just because to me that adds the layer to what the story is. So for me, there's like a genuine curiosity that I have in my job, and I want to make sure that our athletes' stories are heard as well as possible. So my role has evolved every single year that I've been here, and I think this year I feel like I'm in a really good position to help continue to do that. But as I reflect, like that's a highlight for me, and I love seeing all of that come together.
I don't know, Mick, have you seen that Sports Link episode coming out August 28th? And then I agree with what you were saying here with storytelling being so important. And I think that's my favorite thing, is like learning more about the players, or finding your favorite player, and then learning about like Tanner Koziol's family, or learning about the guy who broke both of his hands playing for us. How is this Sports Link episode going to stack up with those other ones? And is there any more coming down the hatch? I'd be really excited to see something like a mini Hard Knocks. Obviously, we won't have the level of production value that a HBO would, but is it going to be something similar to that, or what should we expect, really?
Yeah, guys, I'm really excited to see what SportsLink does with this, because it's going to be a weekly docuseries on the team every week throughout the season. So that first episode will drop 2 days before kickoff, and then be every week before the next game. So there's going to be a lot of great content from the SportsLink crew. I think you can expect some really good stories, awesome insight, access, and they have the teamwork to do it with the staff that they're going to employ to help tell the story. So it's a great question, Colin, and I'm glad you're asking it, because SportsLink is so vital in our eyes to help tell the stories of our athletes, because within our department, we have the bandwidth to make sure that we're doing what we can, but SportsLink helps add that element to the storytelling engine that Ball State can be. So that docuseries is going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of insight, and it's exclusive access to them. So they'll be able to tell stories that nobody else is telling. And that, to me, I think speaks volumes to the trust that Coach U and the staff have and what SportsLink has built that reputation to be. So I'm excited, and being a graduate of the program and now being on the athletic side of the hallway, seeing everything start to come together and working as one unit. They're officially now a production partner of the athletic department. So there's
awesome.
Pieces that are starting to come together within the storytelling aspect that we're all super, super excited about. And the Together documentary is one of those pieces.
All right, Mick, I just have 2 more questions for you. The one I really wanted to ask about, because it was such a moment, and I think it really showed off who you are and your talent and skill as a person, as a broadcaster in general. But I think it was the Fat Hill call that went absolutely viral. They were showing it on, I don't know, was it Rich Eisen or like Colin Coward or something like that? Can you just speak about that moment and what that was like to just get the glowing praise that you definitely deserved on that? What was that experience like?
No, I appreciate you saying that, Colin. And that was a game that I'll always remember. For me, it was a surreal moment. I hate talking about myself, guys. I'll be the first one to tell you. Like, I talk for a living, but talking about myself always makes me sweat a little bit. I think the way that it impacted Ball State from a positive light meant more to me than anything else. And the call being replayed or whatever was great, obviously. But I think just the way that people saw Ball State's name and audio on their screens and their dials, I think meant more than anything else. So Fat delivered on that moment, but the outcry of support from people, of just the messages and the love and the support I felt from the Ball State community is one thing I'll definitely say that meant a lot to me. And Colin, you were one of those people, so I appreciate you reaching out as well. But that to me means more than anything is just the Ball State community coming together in moments like that. And Ryan Vaughn, who's in the developmental office in the foundation, he's the person that was standing behind me that threw his arms up into the air. And he and I talk about that every so often. We talked about it the other day of how he'll still get people say, "You remember that video?" So I think it's just more of like how it impacts the Ball State community that means a lot to me, just because I love this place and it's given me so much. So when there's something that happens like that can impact the university and the community, that always stands out.
Finally, Mick, looking ahead, what are you most excited about for the future of Ball State athletics?
So a lot of things. And I think that Director of Athletics, Jeff Mitchell, has put this department in a really good position. And I'm not only saying that because he helps sign my paychecks.
Doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. But if I'm being honest, the way that he has operated the last couple of years has given this department a chance to have a lot of success. And you're seeing that from turf renovations, stadium upgrades, branding across the university. There's just that cohesiveness. And I think all of our coaching staffs too are buying into that and making sure that they're connected within it. So I think the future of the athletics department's in really good hands. And I think having a president that is so in line with things as well, and President Mearns, that helps bridge everything together as well. So I think the most exciting thing is what are the next steps? What are the next steps after all of these upgrades? Like when the Championship Performance Center is complete, that is going to be a massive, massive win for this department, guys. I don't think that can be stated enough, because you're looking at a whole facility that's going to be dedicated to training and winning and the climb toward excellence. So to be able to have that from a recruiting standpoint and those types of things, when you're talking about all these facilities being upgraded, I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle. But I also just think there's a lot of buy-in from people that are in right now. And when you have that, you're moving into the right direction. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, Colin, that I'm not giving a specific answer to, because I think there's a lot of moving parts. But I think at the same time, all of those moving parts can culminate into something bigger that is exciting. And when you have a president and a director of athletics that are willing to spend an hour with you playing the EA college football game, to promote something to bring the Ball State community together, I think that says a lot about who those people are and who the leadership in the room is. And I think it also helps to see people in those settings that are in those positions. So yeah, I think a lot of it is because of leadership that we have, but also just every team and the units together coming together and being on the same page.
All right, there is actually one more question.
I'm here for it.
Dancing Charlie or the OG original traditional Cardinal
Man.
hat?
I had a feeling. I was waiting for it. I love both logos.
Me too.
I love both logos because when I got to Ball State in 2014, it was the Cardinal head with the stripes.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this logo because that's what I was ingrained with when I first became a student at Ball State. And then when I moved away to North Dakota and I see Ball State win the MAC championship and they win the bowl game and Dancing Charlie's a thing, like, oh, that's a really good logo. I like that look. So I love both, and it's a conversation for sure. But I love both logos, and yeah, that's where I sit on it.
There we go. They're both great, I think.
Yeah.
So, hey, Mick, we really appreciate your time. We know you're a busy guy, but we thank you that you were able to sit down with us. And just know, Chris Radican is already recruiting me to pick up the bar tab in Connecticut here in week 3. So I might be running into you sooner rather than later if we were able to make it all work. So
Chris is one of a kind, guys. Chris is one of a kind.
Yeah. So, hey, get inside. I don't know if the bugs are biting you or not, but head inside.
Honestly, I think I'm just sweating more than anything else. So we're in good shape. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you so much. And I appreciate what you guys are doing for the Ball State community. I've seen some of your interviews with Joanne Edwards and Willie seen a few others. So keep up the great work. Appreciate what you guys are doing. And let's see where this ride goes here in the 25-26 academic athletics season. Appreciate you guys.
There we go. Thanks, Mick.
Yep, go Cardinals.
All right, get chirp. All right, that is our interview with Mick Tidrow, the voice of the Ball State Cardinals. I really enjoyed us sitting down with him. We're all kind of like similar age, all very passionate about Ball State University and the athletics program specifically. He had some good stories about, our friend Chris Radican, about his first game at Tennessee, which I was also at, and then that crazy game against Miami last year with all the delays and when it was going to start and when it was going to end. And it obviously was not a very good result on our end, but it was fun sitting down and speaking with him. He's always pretty active on social media, and I think he's a great ambassador for Ball State athletics as a whole. And so we appreciate Mick's time, and hopefully he's around for years to come and we can speak with him many times in the future. But that is going to do it for this edition of Ball State of the Union. Actually, before I really sign off, remember next week what the schedule looks like for the show. On Wednesday, so a week from today, we're going to be releasing an episode with our friends over at, I believe, Boiler Breakdowns. They're going to kind of give us an inside look at Purdue because, like we kind of talked about with Mick, the transfer portal really makes this really difficult. I think he said Purdue has like 80-something new players. Ball State's roster is like 50-50 returning and people who are up. Coming in from the transfer portal and freshman classes and stuff like that. So really getting a gauge on your own is kind of difficult. So we're going to have those guys on, and they're going to kind of give us a little bit of an inside look at Purdue and what you guys can look forward to in week 1 of people who you should be keeping an eye on, and where maybe either Ball State might have an advantage in some scenarios or where, we're going to have a tough time with some certain people. So we'll have that on Wednesday, and then game day is Saturday. So game day is the day we've all been waiting for. After the game is over, if you come to my Twitter account at John_Clausen17 after the game's over, basically immediately after the game's over, there's going to be a Twitter Spaces. I don't know how long it's going to last. I'm thinking about 30 minutes. So be sure to jump on there with us and let us know your thoughts on the game, good, bad, indifferent, and we'll see. I don't know that anyone's ever really done a fan-made Twitter Space for Ball State football, but we're going to try it out and see how it goes. And then Sunday, I think we might do it live here on YouTube. We're going to do a post-game show. So we're going to do a post-game show the next morning, kind of giving our recaps on the game, and then we'll move into the Auburn week. So that's kind of where we're at for the next week, and we hope you're all along for the ride. And again, we always ask this, but if you could, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on all of our social media platforms, all of our posts, especially the YouTube page. We are on, again, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So find us on any of those. We'll be happy to interact with you and get you the best Ball State content we can. Chirp, chirp, everyone out there, and we will see you guys next week.